Hey there everybody, Eva Zacharia here to talk a little vino crafting. Whether you're having a wine-themed bridal shower, getting married on a vineyard, or having a wedding centered around Italy or France or any other wonderful winemaking region, this is for you. Today's DIY is a wine cork photo holder that doubles as a tent card and as a favor for your guests. The supplies list for this might look a little bit overwhelming, but many of these are items you probably already have in your home. For the full list, head to madeeasydiy.com or click the link in the video description. Let's get crafting. So take a cork. I've chosen this one because see, when this bottle was opened, the cork got a little bit messed up with the bottle opener. This is where the pennies really come in handy because you're just gonna put it on the bottom and nobody will ever know. So you just put a dab of hot glue, and then you put the penny right in the middle, hold it down for a second, and look at that, it stands up absolutely perfectly. And you're just gonna repeat that on all of your corks, as many as you need. And what's really cool about wine corks is every tent card can be a little bit different, right? Take your scrap paper and your pencil, and you are just going to very lightly trace around your cork. So here we have our cork tracing. I'm gonna want the wire to go about this far into the cork, and then you're just gonna draw your frame holder. So remember that yarn, you're just gonna grab it and grab a piece. Now what's really fun about this is if you don't have scissors, you can just use your wire cutter. And I cut this a little bit bigger than I think I'm gonna need it, but basically you just wanna measure how big your pieces of wire need to be. So you're gonna take the string, hold it down, and just go around your drawing that you made. This is where it ends. Give it a clip. And then you're just gonna measure this. So let's grab our ruler. This is roughly 4.5 inches. And the great thing about that is that with your 20 gauge wire with 8 yards, you're gonna get 64 pieces out of these 8 yards. So, you know, give or take a couple of trial runs, you could probably get at least 60 tent cards out of one of these $3.69 things of wire. So now it's time to build our frame. You're gonna take that nail and notice that this is a little bit wider than the 20 gauge, but it's still a pretty thin nail. So what you're gonna do is lay it down on your paper and then take your Sharpie, and since this is about where you want, you're just gonna mark the nail on the Sharpie. And then what I do is I take my pencil and I take the lead away and I find the center of the cork. And I just do a little mark there so I know where to put my nail. Grab your hammer and have your nail in a spot where you can see. So then you're just gonna place the nail right in that starter hole that you made, and then you're just going to very lightly, because it does not take too much pressure to get this in here. And there you go. So I'm gonna leave this in here for now while I measure and cut my wire. So the one thing is too, you know, when you're unwinding this wire, you might not wanna use this part of it. This bend I also like to just clip off before I start, so you just take a wire cutter and very simply snip it. Get that out of the way. Be careful with these wire shards. Recycle them or have like a little trash container next to you at all times. And then this part is so easy. You're just going to open up your wire a little bit, and you're gonna use this piece of yarn as your measuring stick for everything that you do. And you are gonna have to be careful and hold it as you go here so that you make sure all your pieces are the same. Anytime you're working with wire, I recommend wearing something to protect your eyes. So if you're a glasses wearer, great, but if not, maybe think about putting on some goggles. This template is really gonna be our best friend for this whole craft. It's gonna help us get all of our bent wire pieces to be relatively the same. I found what works best for me is to do my first bend just with my hands, holding down my wire. And then I grab the flat nose plier and hold the wire in place while I begin the bend. And this can be a little tricky, so just play around with it a little bit. But after I make my first round, I pick it up, take my flat nose plier, and clamp it down. And then I also use the flat nose plier to make the bend in the middle, which is definitely the most difficult part for me. So here we go. Now you just want to adjust it manually, flatten it out. And the other thing you can do with these, if your wire's being not as cooperative as you want it to, is just put it under something heavy for a little while. All right, so now we're gonna bring our handy dandy wine cork friend back into the picture. You're just gonna remove the nail carefully. And then before I glue this in, I like to just give it a little test. And we're gonna take our tacky glue, which we have in this cup upside down, and just put a little dab of glue right on the end, just to give it a little bit of reinforcement. Get this in there, and then while the glue is still wet, I give it a little wipe. It's gonna dry clear, but that'll just help hold this in place. And while you're using the tacky glue, you can keep it upside down with the lid off. Just make sure that you replace the lid before you put it in the cup so it doesn't dry out. And then, you know, it dries on your fingers really quickly. Just shake it all off, get it off of your craft surface. So now that we have everything put together, we're gonna add our tent card. I made this on a word processor on my computer, and I chose a simple system font for both the name and the table number. Now what I'm doing with this one is naming my tables after types of wine instead of just traditional numbers. So this one is Chianti. And then all you do is place it right here. And your guests have a wine cork picture frame to take home. You can also use these photo holders to place photos of you and your spouse to be throughout your event. You can use them for your table names or numbers, your signature cocktail signs, your social media signs. The options really are endless. So if you make this craft, be sure to share on social media with hashtag WeddingsMadeEasy and tag at WeddingsMadeEasy as well. And as always, more is on MadeEasyDIY.com. Cheers.